Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I beg to move that this House has considered a ban on trade with illegal Israeli settlements. I'm grateful to the Backbench Business Committee for granting it, to the Government for allocating time for this debate, to members from across the House who supported the application, and to the 32,000 constituents who wrote to their MPs to attend and speak on this important issue. Madam Deputy Speaker, 2 embattled generations have grown up in the ashes of the collapse of the Oslo Accords. What little hope was cultivated then, the promise of 2 states, of dignity and democratic rights for all, has been replaced with abject misery. And this is how injustice survives, not through one dramatic moment, but through gradual acceptance, through the lowering of expectations, through the repetition of the same statements while the reality on the ground continues to change. For years, successive British governments have said that Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories are illegal under international law, that settlements undermine peace, that they threaten the viability of a 2-state solution, and yet the settlements continue to expand. So I want to pose a simple question to the government today, a question that sits at the heart of this debate. If settlements are illegal, why have we not made an outright ban on trade? What exactly is it that we are waiting for? Why do we continue to maintain a status quo which has rewarded Israeli expansionism whilst punishing Palestinian aspiration? A status quo that has expected Palestinians to quietly accept that their humanity, that their rights, that their self-determination must always play second fiddle. Madam Deputy,
my honourable friend give way.
I will give way.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm really grateful to my honourable friend for giving way and making such a powerful speech. She always holds a moral compass up to us all in this place. Does she agree with me that those that deny young children as young as the age of 4 access to medical treatment, and while waiting for medical treatment to get to the point of near fatal dehydration, those that deny cancer patients in their thousands access to medical care in these settlements are and should be defined as terrorists? And if they should be defined as terrorists, these settlers, is it not incumbent upon us and this government to strain every diplomatic sinew, but also every technological sinew, to make sure that not one single pound of our money is spent enabling this behaviour?
I agree with my honourable friend with his intervention, and he makes a powerful point. Some time ago, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Palestinian ambassador, Dr. Abtisam Mohamed, reminded parliamentarians that Gaza, East Jerusalem and the West Bank are not separate issues. They are all part of the same national story. They may be separated, occupied and besieged, but they are all connected by the same struggle for freedom. Together, they are the beating heart of one state of Palestine, a state that the UK, our government, quite rightly has taken the historic step to recognise. And yet, whilst we may have recognised Palestine in its entirety, we have failed in any follow-up action to make that recognition a meaningful reality. The expansion of illegal Israeli settlements in the West Bank has seen almost 500,000 acres of Palestinian land appropriated since 1967. In the last year alone, over 120 checkpoints and obstacles have been installed to control Palestinian movement. More recently, the E1 settlement plan, which was approved by the Israeli government, now includes just short of 3,500 housing units. It includes the construction of a new neighbourhood, a new employment and commercial zone, and a new bypass road that is just for Palestinians only. I will.
She's making a really powerful point. She's pointed out that governments on both sides for decades have recognised these settlements as illegal. And now things are worse than ever. We have recognised, which is a good thing. But the expansion plan, the further occupation being promised, surely it's inconsistent if we're not having a complete ban on illegal settlement goods. If not when? If not now, when?
My honourable friend makes an excellent point. The new bypass road for Palestinians only will reroute Palestinians and seal the E1 corridor off permanently. This is a statewide strategy, using every civilian and military means to appropriate land, to isolate Palestinians and to make a Palestinian state impossible to realise. I will give way.
I think she's making an incredibly powerful speech. As somebody who first voted in this place to recognise Palestine in 2014, 14, it is absolutely imperative that we are able to realise a two-state solution if we are ever to see peace and prosperity for either Israel or Palestine. Does she agree with me that the very conduct she's talking about puts that two-state dream at risk, and that is why it must stop?
I agree with my honourable friend, and this is essential why we're having this debate today and why there must be a ban on trade. I am going to limit interventions now because I do have to make progress. The annexation, Madam Deputy Speaker, has accelerated so fast that today there are 750,000 settlers believed to be living on occupied Palestinian land. Their presence each year robs the Palestinian economy, largely agricultural, of over £38 billion. Water in the West Bank is extracted to disproportionately sustain Israeli settlers. 70% of grazing land in the occupied territories is systematically denied to Palestinians. Olive orchards are regularly set fire to. Toxic waste is dumped on their crops to destroy their economic future. I could go on. Between 2009 and 2020, Israeli settlers in Area C received 22,000 building permits. In the same period, for Palestinians, it was just 66. When Palestinians build their homes, their presence is rendered illegal and often slapped with demolition orders. Settlers, however, can have their illegal outposts given full legal status by the Israeli government. In the last 2 years alone, 3,500 Palestinians have been displaced in the West Bank. That's over 80 communities. This is an Israeli government-backed policy reaching far and wide across the West Bank.
Would the Honourable Lady give way?
I will, and it'll be my final intervention.
I'm very grateful to the Honourable Lady, and I did give her advance notice that because of the rescheduling of this, I would seek to intervene on her. As she knows, I visited the area a year ago, and the whole situation is unacceptable. It's very clear that the Foreign Secretary has already referred to the current circumstances as settlement terrorists, in fact. And I just wonder, in terms of taking action on this, it's not just having cast iron sanctions on trade, but financial services and visas, including visas of British citizens who serve in the IDF.
He makes an excellent point, and I think the first step initially should be that we must seek to stem trade that comes from the settlements, and I think the other points are valid points as well, which must be explored. Madam Deputy Speaker, imagine two children born today in the same land. One is born in an Israeli settlement, the other in a Palestinian community, perhaps in one of the 58 refugee camps scattered across the region nearby. They may be separated by only a few miles, but they will grow up under entirely different systems. One will enjoy unrestricted freedom of movement, infrastructure investment, dependable access to healthcare, free-flowing water, the right to be educated, legal protections and state support. The other may face military restrictions, checkpoints, demolitions, land seizures and profound uncertainty about their future. They will both have the same dreams, the same hopes, the same potential. Yet one will grow up benefiting from a system of privilege, while the other experiences the consequences of occupation. These two children will be governed by two different sets of laws, one civilian and one military. And I'm sure you will all be able to guess which child is which. These waves of injustice will keep flowing over families, over communities, over generations. How can it possibly be that two children in the West Bank have such different experiences, and for there to still be any denial that this is apartheid? Across Europe, action is starting to take shape. Ireland has moved forward towards a ban on settlement goods. Spain has already implemented a ban. The Belgian Council of Ministers is expected to agree the detail of a ban tomorrow and for it to be in place by the end of this year. Belgium has also asked the European Commission to bring proposals to the Foreign Ministers meeting on the 13th of July. The Netherlands has begun moving beyond a policy of simple discouragement and has tabled a legal instrument to ban settlement trade. These countries have looked at the same legal questions, the same settlement expansions. They have the same international obligations as we do, but they have concluded that words alone are not enough. The UK remains hesitant, and that should concern us all because our government does have the tools to act. The issue is not capability, it is political will.
Hear, hear.
Some will argue that it is too complex to enforce a ban and that our system of not allowing tariff preferences for settlement goods works perfectly well. It doesn't work, and it puts us on a collision course with our international legal obligations. Ministers cannot in good faith say that it's impossible to ban settlement trade, not when the UK's current trade agreement with Israel already depends on identifying whether goods qualify as Israeli origin. Complexity is also not an excuse to hide from our international obligations. In fact, the complexity is why a ban is needed. Settlement goods are routinely mislabelled, mixed into supply chains, and rerouted to obscure their origin. According to a major global eco study, 17% of goods that are either sold, supplied, or advertised in the UK are actually from illegal settlements. In the last week alone, my office has identified products from 12 different companies based in the occupied territories being sold online or physically in our shops and markets. Most of them are marked as Israeli products. So the differentiation system we depend on does not stop the goods entering this country. It only allows us to slap a tariff charge on them, and those tariff charges actually mean nothing because the Israeli government offers incentives to settlers. It gives out millions in grants to companies to cover the cost of doing business from an illegal settlement. I remind the Minister of the ICJ's advisory opinion of July 2024. It includes an obligation not to aid or assist the illegal occupation and to take steps to prevent trade and investment relations that sustain it. When I've written to companies like Barclays or JCB about their links to Israeli settlements, they offer very little concern. But if our government were to take stronger action, compelling them not to do business in illegal settlements, we would see that action. We would see them sever their links with illegal settlements. Others say that European countries find it difficult to enforce their bans, and this may make our job even more difficult. But the question is not about new enforcement powers, but to utilise existing ones. There are enough instruments already to seriously disrupt illegal activity wherever it is happening. I only need to point to the successors of legislation like the Sanctions and Anti-Money Laundering Act.
Hear, hear.
Through SAMLA, much more complex sanctions have been applied in much tougher circumstances. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the UK didn't say sanctions were too complicated. We relished identifying Russian-linked assets. We didn't say that economic pressure was pointless because Russia will just ignore it. We acted because we rightly believed in the principles at stake. So what answer does the Minister have to the accusations we constantly hear of double standards? So if the government believes international law has meaning, it should be applied consistently. In years to come, will we have the words to explain that we saw the warning signs, that we recognised the damage being done, and still we chose to hesitate? Could we really look back and say that we did enough? Madam Deputy Speaker, there are only so many times that members can hear the same holding responses repeated at the dispatch box by ministers. The government says it supports international law, that settlements are illegal, that it supports a viable Palestinian state. So what does it mean if we can identify the problem and yet we refuse to take the necessary steps? We refuse to move beyond discouragement, to move beyond expressions of concern. The time to legislate for a ban on trade with illegal settlements was decades ago. And now it may be too late to do anything. So we must demonstrate that Britain's commitment to international law is measured not only by what we say, but actually by what we do. Because if settlements are illegal, then, Madam Deputy Speaker, Britain should not be trading with them.